Let's just take a moment, find a comfortable position, and gently allow your body to be supported. Just let your hands rest easily as we gently close our eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in, and then softly exhale. Again, breathe in peace, and breathe out any strain. Now one more time, breathe in the presence of God, and breathe out all that you no longer need to carry. In this holy moment, remember that there is one presence and one power in all life and in all the universe. And that same divine power lives in every one of us. Now bring your attention to the area of your throat, the place we associate with power. And without forcing anything, simply notice this center of expression, choice, and spiritual authority. And as you breathe, release any old belief, and remember that power does not mean pressure, control, or struggle. Let that idea go. In its place, welcome the quiet truth of spiritual power. True power is self-mastery. True power is the divine capacity to direct your life with wisdom, love, and calm assurance. And as we continue to gently breathe in and out, silently affirm with me, I am rooted in divine power. I am strong, steady, and clear. I have the power to choose my thoughts. I have the power to bless my words. And I have the power to direct my energy toward the good. Now imagine the light of divine authority, the power to speak life, to bless, to affirm, and to call forth what is true. And as we focus on this, let's just rest for a few breaths in the silence of this power. Let the silence speak to you. Let that silence remind you that you are not powerless. You are a spiritual being. The power of God expresses in you as courage, right action, and creative presence. Know that we are here to use this power wisely, lovingly, and faithfully, and claim that spiritual authority right now. Now affirm with me that we have the power to create our world in harmony with divine good. We have the power to master our thoughts and to guide our own lives in peace. We have the power to speak words that heal, encourage, and uplift. We have the power to act from our highest self. For we are empowered by Spirit. This is established in truth. We are calm, we are clear, and we are strong. Take one final deep breath in and gently let it go. Feel gratitude for the power of God alive within you. Feel gratitude for the wisdom to use it well. And when you are ready to begin to return your awareness back to the room. Carry this knowing with you. The power you seek is already present within you and is always available as strength, self-mastery, and sacred expression. As we bring our awareness back to the now, we will always remember, as we carry this mastery with us, that forever our thoughts are prayers. Robbie?
Please join me. My thoughts are prayers, and they are always praying. My thoughts are prayers, take charge of what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness for a state of peacefulness, and the right God is always there.
Thank you, Annie. So today we're going to continue our series on the 12 powers, and today, which is appropriate for this month, we are focused on the power of power. And of course, as we've been saying all through the service, the power of power is dominion or mastery. Each of the 12 powers has a corresponding apostle, and of course this month it's Philip, which means lover of horses. Metaphysically, horses represent power. In spiritual understanding, Philip signifies the awakening of the power faculty in consciousness. It's the divine capacity to move, act, and bring spiritual ideas into expression. Philip represents that holy quickening in the soul that responds to truth, sets faith into motion, and gives us strength to follow divine guidance with confidence, trust, and dominion. So in this way, Philip is not only an apostle in history, but also a living symbol of the Christ power within each person. This power gently urges us to rise above limitation and to let divine ability become active in mind, word, and deed. So what is power? Exactly. It's an idea of motion. Power is a sacred current of divine mind moving through creation. It is the holy impulse that awakens life, stirs the soul to faithful action, and carries spiritual purpose into expression. More than human strength, it is the very presence of God within, inviting us to rise, to create, and to bring divine ideas into visible form with faith, authority, and grace. Now, within each of us, this power is the God-given ability to begin and to take right action. Spiritually, it is the divine energy that moves us with purpose, creativity, and inspiration. Power is the inner strength by which God-inspired ideas are set in motion and lovingly brought into expression and completion through our actions. In Hebrew scriptures, there's one story that beautifully illustrates the power faculty of power, and it's the story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. So in the story, David was young and outwardly he was unprepared for battle. He was very small physically. On the other hand, Goliath appeared overwhelming and undefeatable. Yet David did not rely on his physical strength. He rested in the presence and power of God within him. Metaphysically, Goliath represents the giant fears, doubts, and obstacles that can rise in human consciousness, while David symbolizes the awakened spiritual self that remembers its divine source and trust in that divine source. At the end of the story, when David declared, "The battle is the Lord's," he revealed the deeper spiritual meaning of power. True strength flows with and from alignment with God, not from any outward force alone. By moving forward in faith and spiritual authority, David overcame what seemed impossible before him. In Unity Teachings, the story gently reminds us that Christ's power within each of us is greater than any appearance of lack, fear, illness, or adversity. As we affirm divine strength and stand in quiet spiritual confidence, this power faculty awakens, and we are given grace to overcome the giants, fears, in our own lives. We can begin this holy work of victory in our lives through a spiritual tool called visualization. Now, visualization isn't technically part of the power of power, but the power of power works better when combined with other powers. And one of the powers that you need definitely is imagination. Visualization is part of imagination. But in order to demonstrate the power of power, I'm going to use the two combined. Visualization is a sacred faculty by which we form a clear inner image of divine ideas before they appear in outward life. It is the mind's prayerful ability to behold wholeness, harmony, and right outcomes with faith and expectancy. Through visualization, thought is given a pattern, feeling is given direction, and the soul cooperates with this divine power by holding lovingly and steadily to the image of truth until it becomes visible in our experience. I want to tell a personal story concerning visualization. It may or may not be obvious by looking at me today, but when I was younger, I was a pretty decent athlete. I'm sure it's obvious.
Obvious.
Obvious. And I loved playing sports as a kid. A lot of kids do. One of my favorite sports was baseball, and I kind of wish Barb was here to hear this, because she's a big baseball fan. So am I. So I like to play baseball, and I was a pitcher. There was one problem. I didn't have a great arm, and I still don't. I couldn't throw the ball very hard. So I made up for this by throwing what are called junk pitches. I learned that I could affect the movement of the ball by changing the position of my fingers on the ball and by slightly changing the angle of my arm as I threw the ball. So I would throw my fingers like this, and the ball would go one way. This was my fastball with 3 fingers on the ball. If I put 4 fingers on the ball, it would just die. And if I put my 2 fingers together and threw the ball, it was a curveball. And I got pretty good at it. And what I would do to control the angle of the ball is I would picture the ball going into the mitt. As the batter would step into the batter's box, I would plan out which pitches. I would watch him warm up, and if he looked scary as he was swinging that bat, I would maybe not start with the fastball, which wasn't very fast. I would start with something that curved, right? And then save the fastball for the end. But if he didn't look like he knew how to swing very well, I would start with the fastball that went fairly straight and up. And then as he saw that, then I would throw him another ball that went down the other way, and that's what I did. So I was visualizing this the whole time, you see. So this practice of visualization, along with the finger placement, made me pretty successful, as long as I didn't have to face each batter more than once. Because if they came around twice, they realized this guy can't throw. I just have to sit there and wait and see where the ball's going to go, not overthink it. Fortunately, in high school, my coach figured this out too, and he made sure to take me out of the game before I faced the batter a second time. Otherwise, the inevitable shellacking would follow. It happened once, and then he learned his lesson, and I learned mine, and that's how I became a relief pitcher. Right? Because the first pitcher, to start the game, he could throw. And after they're used to seeing him just burn that ball across the plate, I'd show up in there, and I was tall, 6 foot in 9th grade. And I would do the old-fashioned pitch. And I would come at him with all arms and legs, and it looked like the ball was just going to burst across, and it would just... But it worked. So, in fact, I was good enough pitcher that I was selected to be a relief pitcher for the Flint team in the annual Canusa games against the Canadian team. Now the good part.
Did you win that game?
Every game I pitched,
All right.
as long as they took me out. Unfortunately, the story is not a happy one. I never got to play in the Canusa games.
Oh.
The reason was, even though I could visualize what was happening, I was unable to master the power of my words. You see, at that time, back in the 70s, there was a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers called Mark the Bird Fidrich.
Yeah.
He called him the Bird because he kind of looked like Big Bird with the yellow hair. But he became famous because he would talk to the ball before he pitched it.
Oh.
See? But nobody knew what he was saying, and he wouldn't say what he was saying. So because I was such a fan, I said, well, I'm going to try this too. So I'd sit there and I'd talk to the ball. I didn't use positive affirmations to that ball like he probably did. I used negative reinforcement. So basically, I was cussing the ball. Cussing up a storm for a kid in his early teens. That's probably not what you want, but it would get my emotions going, and I could throw the ball maybe 1 mile an hour faster, I thought. So that's what I would do. I didn't think anybody could hear me, but in youth summer league baseball, they only have enough money for one umpire. So they can't put him behind the plate because then he can't see the rest of the field. Where do they put him? Behind the pitcher. So the umpire was hearing every single word I was saying. Worse than that, the umpire was the guy who picked the Canusa game team. Right before the Flint roster was announced, Gary the ump notified me that I was disqualified because of foul language. He wasn't going to have us be going over to Canada cussing up a storm. But that brings me to the next point I want to make. When joined with sound, power becomes the living energy that gives moment to ideas and calls them into visible form. Spoken words carry vibration, intention, and authority, and through them the hidden potential of thought begins to move into expression. So if you're cussing up a storm, that's what you're putting out in the universe. Or maybe your umpire all year. I don't know. It's not going to be good. So in this way, power and sound work together as sacred creative forces, helping divine ideas take shape and manifest in mind, body, and daily experience. This is why the power center of man is located in the throat. In unity metaphysics, the throat is the natural center of power because it's a place where inner spiritual energy begins to move into outer expression. Through the spoken word, silent ideas are clothed in sound, vibration is set into motion, and the unformed substance of spirit starts to take shape and manifest into the physical world. Therefore, the throat becomes a sacred meeting place between the invisible and the visible, where divine ideas are given direction, action, and creative release. What effect does this have on us? So at Unity, that's why we teach that every word carries creative power, because words first impress on our consciousness, then register in our bodies, and then finally appear in the conditions of our daily lives. The spoken word is therefore more than sound. It is an activity of mind and heart that helps shape experience, according to our faith, belief, and feeling behind it. In practical living, the words we speak each day quietly influence our attitudes, relationships, and the choices we make. Whenever speaking, we should remember that encouraging words can calm fear, strengthen confidence, and help us act with greater clarity and peace. And we can also, through the power of the word, transform those feelings onto other people as well. Also remember that what we repeatedly say about ourselves and others often shapes what we expect, how we respond, and what kind of results we can produce. For this reason, speaking with care, honesty, and kindness becomes a gentle spiritual practice that brings more peace, strength, and order into our daily lives and into the world itself. Conversely, when a person continually speaks of illness, weakness, or limitation, those words may deepen such patterns in mind and body by fixing attention upon them, strengthening exaltation around them, and shaping daily responses in ways that keep the condition active, which is probably why I've had a torn rotator cuff for like 7 months now. Should have healed. But I'm always paying attention to it. If I used it more, it would have helped. It would have healed faster. But instead, I just want to hold it, like this all the time, and that does not work. So if somebody repeatedly declares, "I can never get well," this may weaken hope and become less open to prayer, rest, encouragement, or wise choices to support healing. And we just heard a story from Gina that Larry was sick and got over it. But he had a choice. He had the power. He could have just stayed in bed and said, "Gina, will you give me some coffee? Gina, will you give me some soup? Gina, Gina, where are my slippers?" That would have been the easy way out, though. Not Larry. He didn't let it slow him down one bit. He just got right back up, unlike me and my arm. So if you say, "Nothing ever works out for me," this idea may begin to move through life in discouragement and fear, and this can affect your decisions as you move through life. It can also affect your relationships and even the body's sense of ease or tension. High blood pressure comes from stress, among other things. So in Unity teaching, such words do not merely describe experience, they can also reinforce it. Therefore, careless speech may contribute to cycles of anxiety, weakness, and limitation, while wise and loving speech begins to open the way for renewal, strength, and healing. When our words are joined with truth and spoken in harmony with divine truth, it becomes a healing and constructive force. For this reason, we are called to speak with spiritual understanding, affirming life, wholeness, strength, and peace. And in this way, our words become channels through which the Christ power brings harmony to mind, body, and daily affairs. This is why at Unity we encourage the use of denials and affirmations. Denials and affirmations are sacred spiritual tools that help guide the mind away from limitation and back to truth. A denial does not mean pretending that a difficulty does not exist. Rather, it is the prayerful refusal to give enduring power to fear, lack, sickness, weakness, or any appearance contrary to divine life and our divine purpose. Through denials, we release false conclusions and gently clear the mind of beliefs that obscure spiritual understanding. After the denials, we follow with an affirmation. And we use these affirmations to establish what is eternally true in spirit. We declare life where there seems to be depletion, strength where there seems to be weakness, peace where there seems to be confusion, and wholeness where there seems to be brokenness. Used together, denials and affirmations help renewed thought, steady feeling, and align our whole person with the healing, ordering, and empowering activity of divine mind. In practice, a denial may take the form of quietly declaring fear has no authority over me, or lack has no power in the presence of divine abundance. Then we may follow with an affirmation with words such as, "The peace of God fills my mind, divine wisdom directs me," or "The life of God strengthens and renews me." In this way, the soul is gently taught to rest in what is true rather than what merely appears to be true. At Unity, we believe and teach that this is not merely positive speech for its own sake, but a disciplined spiritual practice that trains consciousness to agree with truth rather than false appearances. As this practice becomes habitual to us, the individual often enters into a greater calm, clarity, courage, and spiritual dominion in daily living. So, words have power, but if we can't speak these words, there's one other thing you can do. You can write them. Writing is a good substitute. Sometimes you can clear your mind by writing. A lot of people journal. That's what all that is about, right? A good example of using this form of affirmation is a well-known, probably one of the most famous Unity members. Her name was Maya Angelou. She wrote a book called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Very popular bestseller book. In this book, she offered a moving testimony to the healing and transformative power of words. This was an autobiographical work, and she shared the stories of her childhood and the struggles she faced growing up as an African-American girl in the segregated South. Although she endured racism, rejection, and personal trauma, language and literature became sacred tools through which she rediscovered her voice and reclaimed her sense of worth. One of the most important themes in the book is the ability of words to both wound and heal. Hurtful words rooted in prejudice and cruelty, along with separation from her parents and even a physical violation against her as a young girl, caused her deep pain, leading Angelou into a long period of silence as a child. She just couldn't talk. Yet even in that silence, she discovered the beauty and strength of literature. Through poetry books and the encouragement of caring mentors, she learned that words carry creative power, including the power to heal. At this time, she was reading works of great white writers, and one of the great writers that she read was H. Emily Cady. And as we all know in this room, she's the one that wrote Lessons in Truth. This book, she said, opened her mind to hope, wisdom, and self-expression, while writing gave her the courage to speak again. So the title of her book, the title of her book symbolizes this truth. Like a caged bird that continues to sing, Angelou shows that the human spirit seeks expression even in times of suffering and limitation. Her story demonstrates that words are not merely sounds or symbols. They shape identity, inspire courage, and awaken freedom within the soul. By telling her story with honesty and grace, Angelou transformed her personal experiences into words that continue to bless and encourage readers to this day. So, words have such power that they can not only influence what's happening at the time, but they can carry on out into the future. They can even keep a kid from going to the Caduceus games and just focusing on football after that. So it changed everything. But in closing, I want to remind you that the study of power is there to remind us that we do not walk through life alone, nor are we asked to meet its burdens by human strength alone. The same divine presence that lived in Jesus and was symbolized by Philip lives also within us. It gently calls us to remember who we are in God. When we turn within to prayer, we speak words of truth and hold faithfully to divine ideas through denials, affirmations, and visualization. We open ourselves to the steady movement of Christ's power in our lives. That way, fear will give way to peace, weakness will yield to strength, and confusion will be lifted into spiritual understanding. May we therefore use this faculty of mind called power to consecrate our minds, our words, and our actions to the presence of God, trusting that divine love goes before us. Divine wisdom guides us, and divine faith upholds us. And in this holy assurance, we can live with greater confidence, speak with greater blessings, and move forward each day with grace, courage, and ultimately victory. So as I conclude this talk, I'd like to finish with a caution, however. You cannot speak an idea from divine mind into physical existence. It takes more than that. At least you can't usually do that. Power, even when expressed in words, is only the first step of the process. If you want to learn more about the next step in this process, you'll have to come back next week and the weeks that follow, where you will learn how to manifest the power that you visualized. and also how to refine the other 12 powers, which all work in conjunction. By the way, when somebody asks me about my church, I have a tendency to want to speak something into existence. But I said, oh, Brad, what's your church like? And I said, well, it's like this mega church. It's about 1,500 people show up every Sunday. That's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to speak a Unity of Flint mega church with 1,500 people in it. They're just going to think I'm an idiot or a liar. So be careful how you use this power, because it is powerful. You can, if I were to say something like that, I would influence that person's thought about this church and me in a negative way. Right? You cannot just speak something into existence. There's more to it than that. It's just the beginning. It's a tool, but it's only one of the tools in the toolbox. And if you show up next week, Reverend Brian will be back, and he will go into great detail on what the next step is.
Yay.
And with that, I'll end the service. Thank you. Speaking of the power of words, I'm going to turn it over to Annie, where we will hear her mastery.
Yeah.
Now,
Now it's time for the blessing of the love offering. So take your love offering in your hand and repeat with me. Divine love through me blesses and increases all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And there's a basket in the back where you can leave those on the way out. And with that, we move on to the peace song.
And by the way, if you do come Tuesday to help with the weeds and stuff, don't forget to bring your work gloves.
Visualize yourself pulling weeds with no gloves.
Yeah.
And you'll see it.